welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. This is Sureka Bhaskar presenting to you the Daily News Analysis. For today's discussion, we've picked up a number of articles from The Hindu and the Indian Express, which are both important and relevant for the UPSC CSE examination. Now, let us have a look at the topics one by one. The first article for the day has been picked up from page number 8 of The Hindu, What do Scientists Make of the Budget? So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the key provisions of the Union Budget 2024-2025 related to science and technology, especially on the focus areas of research funding, the technology missions, as well as the initiatives in the key areas. The second article has been picked up from page number 7 of The Hindu, Balancing Competition and Sustainability for India. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about how regulatory framework as well as competition policies can integrate the sustainability considerations in order to foster the greener initiatives and innovations as well as environmentally friendly business policies. The third article has been picked up from page number 13 of the Indian Express in the SC verdict, how the CJI underlined the concept of substantive equality. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the recent verdict of the Supreme Court of India on the sub-classification of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe quota, emphasizing on the concept of substantive equality as focused and underlined by the Chief Justice of India, Mr. D.Y. Chandrachud. The fourth article has been picked up from page number 10 of The Hindu, Himachal cloudbursts, death toll rises to 11. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the recent incident or the phenomena of cloudburst which actually led to the subsequent flash floods in the state of Himachal Pradesh. So here we'll be discussing about what is the concept of cloudburst, what are flash floods, as well as the rescue efforts that has been taken in the state, as well as the death toll which has been taken by this particular natural disaster. The last article for the day has been picked up from page number 10 of The Hindu, Kerala pushes for the national disaster tag. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the recent request that has been made by the state government of Kerala to the union government in order to declare the recent landslide catastrophe in Wayanad as national disaster due to its severity as well as the impact it had. And towards the end of the discussion, we'll be solving few prelims as well as mains practice questions. And now let us get into the discussion. The first article for the day will be what do scientists make of the budget? So this pretty insightful as well as a very interesting article discusses about the key highlights and the provisions of the Union Budget 2024-2025 for the field of science and technology. And specifically, it focuses on certain areas like technological mission, the mission objectives, as well as the research funding that has actually been given to this particular science and technology, as well as initiatives in key areas. Okay, so this particular topic discusses about Union Budget 2024-2025 and the provisions it entails for the field of science and technology, as well as India's science ecosystem will be discussed here. Now moving on, this particular topic can be mapped to GS paper 3 under science and technology for the mains examination, specifically for indigenization of technology. Now moving forward, there has already been a previous year question in 2014 in the mains examination with respect to that of scientific research and how important it is, you know, in the field of business professions, engineering or administration, and the universities are becoming consumer oriented, critically comment. So these kind of questions are very, very dynamic in nature, so that, you know, you need to actually build your horizon on reading a number of topics like this, the research funding, etc. What are the budgetary allocations, associated schemes, etc. and India's performance in science and technology, as well as our space missions and biotechnology, so that you can actually reproduce or replicate all that in your mains, in your answer writing, as well as in your essay paper. Now moving forward, let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. The Union Budget 2024-25 has introduced several significant initiatives and allocations aimed at boosting science and technology as well as innovation in the country. Very simple. So what are the budgetary allocations for the field of science and technology? That is it. So here we'll be discussing about 10 major highlights of the Union Budget 2024-25. Okay. So the first one is the ANRF, which stands for Anusandhan National Research Foundation. This I'll just quickly, you know, take you through without, you know, elaborating much because there's nothing much to understand over here. So here, the objective of ANRF is just to support the basic research and prototype development across various scientific disciplines, funding is estimated cost of around rupees 50,000 crores for the period of 2023-2028. And this is actually, there has been a rising or increase in the research funding. And focus here is seeding, growing and promoting research and development across universities, colleges, research institutes, R&D laboratories, etc. Here, the strategic direction is ensuring collaboration between the industries and the academia, then the government departments and research institutions in order to have a cohesive research ecosystem. Operational structure, that is, it will provide high-level strategic direction for, taking out or carrying forward the research, acting as an umbrella body in order to, bring together all the research efforts across the country. What is the significance? By bridging the gap between academia and industry, it aims to, foster a culture of innovation and translate research into practical applications. Also, it is expected to address the long-standing issue of inadequate funding as well as coordination in India's research landscape. The second one, it is promotion of private sector-driven research and innovation, where the objective is to spur the private sector-driven research and innovation at a commercial scale. Here, the finance is actually financing pool of 1 lakh crore, which will be available through various mechanisms like grants, loans, equity, etc. Next, focus areas will be biotechnology, artificial intelligence, clean energy, and advanced materials. And here, the expected impact is acceleration of the development of new technology and products, focus on increased patent filings and improved global competitiveness of the Indian companies. And also it has long-term goals of increasing India's gross expenditure on R&D as a percentage of GDP and to position India as a global innovation hub. The third one is expanding the space economy. Here, it is to expand space economy 5-fold in the next decade from the current size of $7 billion to $35 billion. Here, a venture capital fund where there is, lot of pooling in of funds from the investors and other, financial institutions. Here, around 1,000 crores for space technology and startups to be managed by ISRO. Here, it actually fosters innovation and encouraging private sector participation in the space sector, including areas such as manufacturing of the satellites, launching of the satellites into space and space-based applications. Here, the policy initiatives, it is implementation of the Indian Space Policy 2023. And also, what is the expected outcome of this is creation of high-skilled jobs, development of cutting-edge technology, and positioning India as a major player in the global space economy. The fourth one is transforming agriculture research. So slowly we are actually moving towards science and technology, which is agriculture based. Okay. So here the focus is enhancing agriculture research and developing climate resilient crop varieties because of vagaries of nature, addressing the challenges of food security and climate change is very important. Here the initiatives include establishment of speed breeding platforms. Then there are introduction of new high-yield variety crops as well as climate-resilient varieties across 32 field and horticulture crops developed through advanced breeding technologies. Also, implementation of precision agriculture techniques. All these terms are very important and it's important for you to actually appreciate the differences between each concept. And digital farming technology. The research areas include the drought tolerance, pest resistance, nutritional enhancement as well as adaptation to different agroclimatic zones. Here, the impact is boosting agriculture productivity, ensuring food security because of the recent climate change. And finally, long-term vision is to make Indian agriculture more resilient, sustainable as well as globally competitive. The fifth one is clean energy and nuclear research. Here, the funding has actually increased in order to integrate nuclear energy as a significant part of India's energy mix. Here, the initiatives include partnership with the private sector, in order to set up Bharat small reactors aimed to providing reliable and clean base load power. And also the focus on renewable energy, that is there is continued emphasis on solar, wind as well as hydroelectric power which are renewable energy. This will actually increase their share in the energy mix. Also promote this concept of green hydrogen. And what is the expected outcome is that reduction in the carbon emission because of usage of greener technologies, enhanced energy security and positioning India as a leader in clean energy. Here, what is the significance? These initiatives align with India's commitment to combat the climate change and achieve the NDCs, that is nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. The sixth one, Now, boosting the pharmaceutical research. Here, the allocation increased the funding of the production-linked incentive scheme for the pharmaceuticals to around 2,000 crores, which is a significant boost from the previous years. This is to boost the domestic pharmaceutical manufacturing as well as research, reducing the dependency on the imports that India actually heavily, relies on the other countries for its import. Next, also the infrastructural development, where there will be establishment of state-of-the-art research facilities and biotech parks across the country. Also, the expected outcomes, that is, there will be increase in the discovery of drugs, higher exports from India of the pharmaceutical products, and improved healthcare accessibility. The seventh one is critical minerals research. This has actually been in news of late. So, critical minerals where their availability is actually not much, okay. Also, it acts as one of the important raw materials in the production of other goods. So, here the initiative is exemption of custom duties on 25 critical minerals, including the rare earth minerals like lithium, cobalt and nickel. Here, the objective is to boost the R&D in critical minerals, which is actually essential for various high-tech applications and emerging technology. And the expected impact is reduced dependence on the imports, like we actually rely on imports much on the countries like China, etc. And this will actually enhance technological sovereignty and position India as a key player in the global critical mineral supply chain. Moving forward, next one is industrial parks as well as indigenous technology. Here the plan is the creation of plug-and-play industrial parks. That is, the office is already constructed with all the basic amenities. You just have to go, work and get back, okay? So here it is a plug-and-play industrial parks in 100 cities across India. This is to promote the uptake of indigenous technology developed by the institutions like CSIR labs and boost manufacturing. Here the features include ready-to-use infrastructure, that is what I told, that's the meaning of plug-and-play, shared R&D facilities, as well as incubation centers for startups working on indigenous technology. Expected outcome, there will be faster commercialization of indigenous technology, creation of high-skilled jobs, etc., and to boost the manufacturing exports. Here, the long-term impact will be strengthening of India's technological self-reliance and also promotion of Make in India initiative. The ninth one, there is increased funding for scientific institution, where the CSIR budget has increased by 10%. The allocation is around 6,000 crores, which is earmarked for the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research. Beneficiary institutions include the CSIR labs, the IITs and the IISc, and also there is focus on infrastructure upgrade, where the funds allocated for modernizing the research facilities and acquiring the cutting-edge scientific equipment. And the last one is human resource development in science. The initiative is to launch the programs like the I3C BRIC RCB PhD program and the expansion of existing schemes. Also, the objective is to create scientists with cross-disciplinary expertise in different fields like biotechnology, biosciences, in order to nurture a new generation of researchers across the scientific disciplines. Here, there are key programs like the PMRF scheme, introduction of new postdoctoral fellowship programs, and also launch of mentorship programs pairing young researchers with established scientists. Okay. And also, the expected outcomes here is the creation of a robust pipeline of skilled researchers. So, you will get skilled researchers and also increased research productivity and enhanced innovation ecosystem. The next article that we'll be discussing about is balancing competition and sustainability for India. So, in this particular article, we'll be discussing about how it is important to shape our regulatory framework as well as the competition policies in order to accommodate the sustainability considerations so that there is environmental friendly business policies, okay? So, in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the Competition Commission of India as well as the framework that has been brought by the Security and Exchange Board of India as well as the concept of climate change. So, this particular topic can be mapped to GS paper 3 for the mains examination, especially under environment and ecology, climate change, biodiversity and conservation, and also under economy, under economic development. And moving forward, there has been a mains question that was asked in the 2017 mains examination with respect to that of the climate change. So, climate change is a topic. The associated agreements, the negotiations as well as the dialogues, etc. become very, very important for both the prelims as well as the mains examination. Now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. So the article addresses how the regulatory framework that any business that is actually starting in an economy has to follow, and the competition policies, again any kind of project that actually has to follow, can integrate how the regulatory framework and the competition policies can integrate this particular sustainability consideration. That is, it has to be environmental friendly on one hand, as well as it has to generate profit to the economy. Okay. So, how this can actually foster greener innovations as well as environmentally responsible business practices. So, this is what the article is discussing about. Now, let us understand how the market systems have actually evolved over the years. So, initially, markets were actually barter systems. Okay, barter system is where there was exchange for goods for goods. That is, for example, if I'm actually selling fruits, I exchange it for the nuts that I actually need. So, this was the barter system. And now what happened? It has transcended to the digital market spaces. This is actually driven by the supply as well as the demand. This all of us can understand. However, this particular supply as well as demand have been disrupted by the vagaries of nature. That is, climate change disrupts the supply side, causing mismatches between the supply as well as demand. If there is more supply, sometimes there is the lesser demand and vice versa, which impacts the overall economy. Now moving forward, let us see how this particular climate change disrupts the supply side. One is by extreme weather. This actually results in the damaged crops and livestock as well as infrastructure. This causes delays as well as increasing costs. Okay, if you see during calamities and everything, the cost of milk packet actually surges. That actually results in inflation. Next, if you see, there are temperature changes also. This actually results in the reduction in the crop yields as well as the productivity of crops. Moving forward, there is scarcity of water that affects irrigation and industrial processes. And also, there are other things like there is sea level rise that actually threatens the coastal infrastructure as well as the agricultural land. And also, there is biodiversity loss, there are changing ecosystem as well as the energy supply is actually getting disrupted. How this affects the hydropower and the thermal power efficiency. Now, moving forward, in order to cooperate, in order to actually get into all this, what happens? India's SEBI, that is the Security and Exchange Board of India, has actually brought down a revised framework, okay, that will have sustainability also as a factor or a tenet. So, in 2023, the Security and the Exchange Board of India introduced a revised framework for business responsibility and sustainability report. This is nothing but any business or any project that actually comes out in an economy, it actually has to weed away greenwashing. What do you mean by greenwashing? This is nothing but proving or actually making people believe that my particular product or a project or the manufacturing process is actually environmentally friendly, but in reality it is not. Okay, so we need to weed away greenwashing and actually incorporate policies so that the sustainability and environmental friendly processes are there, and also the customers are actually benefiting out of it. So here in 2023, SEBI introduced a revised framework for the business responsibility and sustainability report. This actually mandates companies to account for environmental impact of their entire value chain, starting from the resources procurement to the manufacturing process as well as transporting. Everything actually have to be environmentally friendly to enhance transparency and to combat this particular greenwashing that I actually told you, ensuring that sustainability benefits extend throughout the value chain. Now moving forward, we need to see few global examples, what countries across the globe have actually done in order to incorporate the sustainability principles. First one, Japan actually has brought in the Anti-Monopoly Act. Okay, so under this act, there are few guidelines that support environmental sustainability in business collaborations. So this actually includes various initiatives or efforts to reduce the carbon emissions, adopt greener technology, improve the overall environmental performance, etc. And these guidelines also suggest that most environmental sustainability activities, they do not restrict the competition. Okay, it can go hand in hand. That is what they are saying. For example, collaborating on sustainability can lead to the development of innovative projects, new projects and services, and this can actually enhance the overall quality of the project as well as, safety, etc. Similarly, if you see the European Union, they have the draft guidelines on horizontal agreements. What do you mean by horizontal agreements? Any kind of agreement that is between the, private firm and another private firm. Whereas vertical, it is from the PSUs, between the PSUs and a private firm. Okay, so here between the horizontal agreements, now it actually includes a specific section on sustainability agreements as enshrined in under Article 101 Clause 1 of this particular draft regulations. Here, it includes addressing the climate change, reducing the pollution, limiting the natural resource use, and promoting the resilient infrastructure. Similarly, if you have Singapore, here they have the collaboration guidance note. Here, the environmental sustainability collaboration guidance note, it provides clarity on how this CCCS, that is nothing but the Competition and Consumer Commission of Singapore, how it will actually assess collaboration pursuing the environmental sustainability. So this also ensures businesses can collaborate on sustainability without harming any kind of competition. Now moving forward, we have Netherlands, where there is actually permissive enforcement. This is nothing but the Netherlands Authority for Consumers and Markets. They have adopted a permissive stance on the sustainability collaborations, allowing agreements that do not significantly impede. That is nothing but they say that when they adopt a sustainability principle, it should actually not hamper the competition or the enforcement of that particular project or the product in the economy. So that is what it is. Now moving forward, let us see what is the potential for India and what role does this particular quasi-judicial body or the statutory body of Competition Commission of India has to play here. So, India actually aims at the net zero emissions, okay, by 2070, and it actually ranked only 5th globally in contributions to global warming in 2023. If you see, here the Competition Commission of India has to consider the inclusion of sustainability policies in all its evaluation. For example, it released the pandemic advisory, that is during the pandemic, the CCI acknowledged the supply side disruptions and allowed necessary information sharing in order to ensure fair distribution of the products. And similarly, advisories could be issued for sustainability goals as well. Because if you see, Section 49 Clause 3 of the Competition Act of 2002, it empowers the CCI to promote competition advocacy and awareness, participate in economic policy and formulation, and also emphasize sustainability policies and enterprise collaboration for greener innovations. Now moving forward, it is important for us to understand with respect to the prelims examination on what is this Competition Commission of India. It is a statutory body established in 2009 by the Government of India under the Competition Act of 2002 for the administration, implementation and enforcement of this particular act. And also it's a quasi-judicial body, very, very important. It actually aims to eliminate practices having adverse effect on the competition, promote and sustain the competition, protect the interest of the consumers, ensure freedom of trade in the markets of India, etc. And also, if you look at the composition, it consists of a chairperson and 6 members appointed by the central government. Now moving on, we will actually end this particular topic by discussing few case studies across the world. If you see, there was a UK market study where electric vehicle charging sector was there. This is the UK's Competition and Markets Authority. They conducted a market study on the electric vehicle. What do you mean by electric vehicle? First of all, it was actually adopted in order to reduce the vagaries of pollution, right? So, they had actually conducted a market study on the electric vehicle charging sector to develop competition. At the same time, there was also innovation, and then there were lower prices, greater investment, etc. And a similar study on green initiatives must also be done. And also, if you see, in 2011, the TRAI, that is the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, recommended that sustainability practices should be introduced in the national telecom policy as well in order to promote an environmentally friendly telecom sector. And here what happens, the CCI could consider similar inclusions in the national competition policy. So to conclude, what has to be done? First thing, there has to be integration of competition and sustainability, where the article focuses on the competition policy cannot be isolated from sustainability. So it has to go hand in hand. And the second one here, the role of the Competition Commission of India is very, very important in order to foster innovation while also considering the environmental concerns. The next article that we'll be discussing about is in SC verdict, how the CJI, that is the Chief Justice of India, had underlined the concept of substantive equality. Okay, So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the concept of formal equality and how it is different from that of substantive equality, as well as what are the judicial precedents that had actually come in place in order to set the difference between formal as well as substantive equality. Okay, so this particular topic can be mapped to GS paper 2 under mains examination, specifically under Indian Constitution, the historical underpinnings, evolution, features, amendments, significant provisions, as well as the basic structure. So if we move forward, there has already been a question which was asked in the UPSC mains examination in 2021 with respect to the distinguishing features of the notion of right to equality in the constitutions of USA and India. So here the concepts of basic structure, the various tenets of Indian constitution, the doctrines, etc. become very, very important for your mains examination. Now moving forward, let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. Okay, so recently the Supreme Court of India, in its verdict on the sub-classification of the SC and ST reservation, highlights the shift from formal equality towards substantive equality. Okay, so recently the Supreme Court had given a verdict on the SC and ST quota, or like how we have the creamy layer for the OBCs. Okay, so here we will further understand what is the Supreme Court judgment is all about. So here the Supreme Court ruled that sub-classification within the SC community is constitutionally valid. So here let me actually give you the backdrop of it. So here in E.V. Chinnaya versus the state of Andhra Pradesh, in this ruling in 2004, the Supreme Court had actually given its verdict saying that the entire SC, that is the scheduled caste community, is one homogeneous community, and the reservation that they avail of 15% actually homogeneously applies to the entire SC community, and this has actually been recently overturned by the Supreme Court. Okay, so here what the Supreme Court has actually told, the Supreme Court ruled that sub-classification within SCs is constitutionally valid. Earlier it said it is entirely homogeneous and sub-classification is not required. So here, what do you mean by sub-classification? It is the division of a larger category. That is, SC as a category is one entire community. Here you divide this community into smaller, more specific groups based on distinct characteristics as well as the criteria. The social, it can be economic, etc. And the judgment clarified that the principle of sub-classification would apply when the social positions of different groups within the SCs are not comparable. What do you mean is that the SC as a whole is one particular community, and under this we have actually different castes. Okay, for example, we can take it as A, B, C and D. When the social conditions of A and B is actually worse when compared to C and D, then what happens? There is a need for sub-classification so that they can also avail this particular benefit of reservation. Now moving forward, let us discuss what is formal equality and how does it actually vary from that of the concept of substantive equality. So formal equality, also known as the procedural equality or the equality of opportunity, this is based on the principle that all the individuals should be treated as equals or the same under the law, and that identical standards must actually apply to everyone regardless of their background or the circumstances. If you see historically, the Supreme Court of India has adopted a formal equality approach, treating the reservations as exceptions to the general rule of equal treatment. So for example, if you see the judicial pronouncements that has actually been made by the Supreme Court previously, here the state of Madras versus Champakam Durai Rajan in 1951, here the court initially viewed reservation as unconstitutional, emphasizing the formal understanding of equality, because formal equality actually it treats everyone equally regardless of the background or the circumstances you actually come from. So here this is what is called a state of Madras versus Champakam Durai Rajan case, and followed by that M.R. Balaji versus state of Mysore 1963. This case reinforced formal equality by establishing that reservation must not actually exceed a particular threshold of around 50%, reflecting the belief that too many reservations could actually undermine the merit principle. Then what happened in Indra Sahani versus Union of India 1992, while this case upheld the validity of reservation for the OBCs, that is the other backward classes, in government jobs, it also reiterated the 50% cap on reservation, and it actually excluded the creamy layer from actually availing the benefits of this particular reservation. Now, The efficiency concerns include the focus on formal equality often leads to a tension between the reservation as well as administrative efficiency. And according to Article 335 of Constitution of India, it states that reservation must be consistent with the maintenance of efficiency in administration, traditionally interpreted as reservations potentially undermining the merit as well as efficiency. Now moving forward, let us understand this particular concept of substantive equality. So this is also known as equality of outcome, or it is called as equity, that is giving opportunity to the lesser privileged people. This seeks to address and rectify the systemic inequalities as well as the historical injustices by considering varying needs, the disadvantages and circumstances of different groups socially as well as economically. And there is a shift these days towards substantive equality in the Supreme Court judgments in recent times. For example, if you see State of Kerala versus N.M. Thomas in 1975, the Supreme Court upheld a Kerala government order that allowed for the reservation of qualifying criteria for SC/ST candidates in government jobs. Similarly, in State of Punjab versus Davinder Singh in 2024, this case allowed for the sub-classification within the SC/ST reservation, recognizing that not all the beneficiaries of this particular reservation face the same level of disadvantage. And moving forward, now looking at the efficiency as well as merit as underlined by the Chief Justice of India. Here, the Chief Justice of India, Mr. D.Y. Chandrachud, actually challenged the notion. So there was already a notion that believed that reservations actually dilute the merit and efficiency, arguing that achieving minimum qualification is adequate for maintaining efficiency in administration. He also reframed the entire debate, stating that securing higher marks does not necessarily lead to better efficiency or administration. So he actually feels that subclassification under this SC and ST is required. The next article that we'll be discussing about is Himachal cloudbursts and death toll raises to 11 and search on for over 40 missing people. Okay. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about this particular natural disaster or the phenomena of cloudburst. What is it? Why does it actually happen? And what are the recent examples or instances of such occurrence encountered? So here we'll be discussing about the concept of cloudburst, which is very, very important because you have a similar question that has been asked in 2022 mains. And also this particular topic can be mapped to prelims as well as mains, GS paper 1 and 3, important geophysical phenomena such as earthquake, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclones, etc. And also all the rescue operations and the disaster relief and funding mitigation, all that actually comes under disaster management for your mains examination. Now moving forward, there has been a previous year question asked in 2022 in the mains examination with respect to the mechanism and occurrence of cloudburst in the context of Indian subcontinent, and also they have asked us to cite 2 examples. Okay, so here we actually understand that cloudburst becomes a very, very important topic for discussion. And now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. Okay, so Himachal Pradesh, which is a northern state in India, has actually experienced severe weather conditions due to a series of cloudburst events that is actually had occurred. And here it is very, very important for us to understand what is the difference between the term cloudburst as well as rainfall. Okay, so this has actually led to the conditions of flash floods in several districts including Kullu, Mandi as well as the Shimla districts. And also the events actually started in the night of July 31st, resulting in a significant humanitarian crisis with over 40 people missing and a death toll of over 11. Okay. Now moving forward, let us understand what is the definition of the Indian Meteorological Department about cloudbursts. So according to India Meteorological Department, cloudbursts are intense rainstorms where more than 10 centimeter, this is nothing but about 4 inches of rainfall, occur within an hour over a small area of around 10 square kilometers, that is about 3.86 square miles. Okay, so when there is intense rainstorm which actually happens over a small area over a short span of time, that is called as the cloudburst. And these events commonly occur in the mountainous regions, particularly in the Himalayas. And also, if you see with respect to that of the Indian subcontinent, the cloudbursts typically happen when the monsoon clouds move northward from the Bay of Bengal or from the Arabian Sea. towards the plains and onto the Himalayas. Okay, so basically what happens, the monsoon or the rain-bearing clouds actually move northward from the Bay of Bengal as well as the Arabian Sea region. It moves across the plains and then it actually reaches to Himalayas, and sometimes resulting in rainfall to an extent of even 75 millimeter per hour, that is about 3 inches. Okay. Now moving forward, let us understand what are the different causes that actually leads to the occurrence of the cloudburst. So first one is the upward air currents. Okay, so here cloudbursts occur when strong upward currents of hot air that actually prevents the raindrop from falling, allowing them to grow larger while new smaller drops actually form below. Next one, there is actually huge accumulation of these water droplets or moisture in the atmosphere, and then that actually gets released. So this leads to a significant buildup of water in the atmosphere, which is released abruptly when the upward currents actually weaken. Then what happens? The mountainous terrain is also a contributing factor. So cloudbursts frequently happen in the hilly and the mountainous areas of the Indian subcontinent due to the region's complex topography, which facilitates the orographic lifting. Here we need to understand what is this orographic lifting. This occurs when the air rises and cools as it travels up the windward side of the mountain. If this is a mountain and the wind is actually climbing here, this is called as the windward side, which actually receives the rainfall, and this is called as the leeward side. Okay, so what happens is that the orographic lifting actually occurs when the air rises the windward side of the mountain, enhancing the development of the cloud and rainfall as the moist air actually ascends over the mountains. And here, monsoon dynamics and the localized weather patterns also influence these intense precipitation events. So here we need to actually understand what is the difference between this process of cloudburst as well as normal rainfall. So rainfall is nothing but it is the condensed water which is falling from the cloud over a longer period and a larger area. Okay, whereas cloudburst is nothing but it is sudden, it is an intense rainstorm that actually results in more than 10 centimeter of rain per hour, and it is a natural phenomenon that occurs unexpectedly, very abruptly, and is typically drenching. So if you actually see at this particular image, we can actually see the process of this particular occurrence of cloudburst. The first one is that the moist air encounters a mountain. So here there is actually a mountain. The moist air actually encounters a mountain or a hill and it is forced to rise. Second, what happens is the rising air actually then cools, it condenses and results in the cloud formation. Third step is that there is violent upward flow of air, and this actually prevents the condensing raindrops from falling to the ground. And the fourth step is there is lack of upward air. This actually prevents the dissipation of moisture. And then what happens is the whole of the stored water falls abruptly, suddenly over one small area, causing flash floods. So here steep slope causes flash floods, and that actually results in a lot of, death toll, etc. Now moving forward, let us actually, cite few examples of recent occurrences of this cloudburst events. The first one is Uttarakhand cloudburst, July 2021. Here, devastating cloudburst in Chamoli district in Uttarkashi as well as Pittorgarh had actually caused the flash floods, landslides and extensive damage to the infrastructure as well as humanitarian crisis. The next one is Himachal Pradesh cloudburst, which actually occurred in the month of August in 2020, where cloudburst had occurred in Kullu, Lahaul Spiti as well as the Kinnaur. This triggered landslides as well as flash floods, damaging the roads, bridges as well as the houses. The next article that we'll be discussing about is Kerala pushes for national disaster tag. So this particular article discusses about the recent request that has been made by the government of Kerala to the union government in order to declare the recent catastrophe of landslides in Wayanad as a national disaster. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the landslides of Kerala, as well as this is a concept or, it is a debate over cooperative federalism. And also this particular topic can be mapped to the prelims as well as the mains examination for GS paper 3 disaster management. Now moving forward, there has been a previous year question asked in the year 2020 in the mains examination with respect to that of recent measures that have been initiated by the disaster management by Government of India, departing from the earlier reactive approach. So here disaster management entirely becomes very, very important, and the associated geophysical phenomena that actually cause catastrophe and loss of life and property becomes equally important. Now, let us actually understand what this particular article is discussing about. So, the Kerala government has requested the Indian central government in order to declare the recent landslides in Wayanad as a national disaster. And also, the Chief Minister of Kerala, Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan, actually stated that the destruction caused by the landslides is actually unparalleled in recent times in India. Now, moving forward, let us actually see what has been the response of the Union government to such a request made by the state government. So, the Union Minister of State for Tourism, Mr. Suresh Gopi, had actually visited the disaster zone and mentioned that the central government is actually taking this particular request under consideration, but they have to follow certain legal as well as procedural modalities. And also, the centre has asked the Kerala government for a detailed report on the current situation that has actually been there in the state. Now, let us understand what is this particular national disaster tag, and when a particular phenomena actually classifies or it actually becomes or meets the criterion of becoming a national disaster, what are the advantages or the extra funds it actually receives or it can avail from the central government. Here, a national disaster is a significant event that actually causes substantial loss of life, property, as well as infrastructure, requiring a coordinated response from the national government. And in India, a natural disaster can be elevated to this particular national disaster when its impact is beyond the capacity of the state government to manage alone, necessitating the national level intervention. Okay, so when it goes beyond the capacity of the state government to handle the situation, then what happens? This particular natural disaster becomes a national disaster. So, the declaration actually allows for the allocation of additional funds from the NDRF, that is nothing but the National Disaster Response Fund, to support the recovery as well as rehabilitation efforts. More resources will be given, including the personnel as well as the equipment from the central agencies can be deployed to the affected areas for the rescue as well as relief operations. Now, it is also important for us to understand or, discuss about this NDRF, that is National Disaster Response Fund. It is a dedicated fund established by the Indian government in order to provide financial support for the disaster response, relief and the rehabilitation efforts following the natural as well as man-made disasters. Here, the central government contributes to the NDRF, that is the National Disaster Response Fund, through the budgetary allocations. Initially, while discussing the budget, there is a particular amount that is allocated to this, with the funds being released based on the needs as well as the severity of the disasters. And part of the funds is actually raised through specific levy on the taxes, ensuring a continuous flow of resources into this particular NDRF. And in certain cases, the international aid as well as the donations can also be directed towards the NDRF in order to support large-scale disaster response efforts. And if you see, which is the nodal agency which actually manages this, is that the NDRF is managed by the Ministry of Home Affairs, which oversees the allocation of funds, the utilization as well as the auditing. And also, there is a National Executive Committee, that is the NEC, which is part of the National Disaster Management Authority, that is the NDMA. It advises the disbursement of funds as well as monitors their usage. Now let us solve few prelims as well as mains practice questions. The first question reads, with reference to that of Anusandhan National Research Foundation, consider the following statements. It is a statutory body. Yes, this is correct. And it was established as per the recommendations of the National Education Policy 2020. This is also correct. And ANRF works under the directions and guidance of Science and Engineering Research Board, that is the SERB. This is actually wrong. So, since 1 and 2 are actually correct, here the answer will be option A. Now, moving forward, the second question reads, which of the following countries has introduced guidelines under its Anti-Monopoly Act in order to aid private businesses in horizontal collaboration for realizing a green society? United Kingdom, no, this is wrong. United States is also wrong and Germany is also wrong. Here, Japan is actually the right answer. So, the answer will be option B. Now, moving forward, the third question reads, cloudbursts are most commonly associated with which geographical region in India? The Thar Desert, no, of course, this is wrong. The Indo-Gangetic Plain, no, this is wrong. Some of you might be confused with it, but this is wrong. Then the Western Ghats is also wrong. The right option is the Himalayan region. So, since C is actually the right option, the answer will be option C. Now, moving forward, the fourth question reads, which of the following statements is or are correct regarding the national disaster and the National Disaster Response Fund? The first statement is a national disaster is declared when the impact of a disaster exceeds the capacity of the state government to manage, necessitating a coordinated national response. Yes, this is correct. And the NDRF is managed by the Ministry of Finance. This is actually wrong. It is Ministry of Home Affairs. So since second is actually wrong, here only one is actually correct. So here the correct answer will be option A, only one. The fifth question reads, what is meant by formal equality in the context of legal principles? First, treating individuals differently based on their backgrounds. This is actually wrong. Applying identical standards and treatment to all the individuals under the law. This is actually correct. Since statement B is correct, the correct answer will be option D. Now let us solve the mains practice question. The question reads, examine the state of research and innovation ecosystem in India and evaluate the potential role of the Anusandhan National Research Foundation in fostering a cohesive and robust research environment. This is a 15 marker. Here, the approach to this particular question is broken down into three parts. That is the introduction, the body, as well as the conclusion. So, in the introduction, we will briefly outline the importance of enhancing the research as well as innovation ecosystem in India, how and why it is actually important. And in the body, we'll discuss about what is the current landscape of research in India, where we'll summarize the status of research funding, the infrastructure, the objectives, or the missions that is actually taken place in the initiatives in key areas, etc., and the collaboration in India. Also, here we'll actually bring in the role of ANRF, how it actually aims to unify and energize the research efforts across the various sectors. Next one is the expected outcomes, where we need to project the potential improvements in innovation, technological advancements, and global research standing. And towards the end, we will actually conclude this particular answer by reaffirming the anticipated role of ANRF in transforming India's research capabilities as well as achieving the long-term developmental goals. With this, we've actually come to the end of our DNA discussion. For more such videos and for live updates, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you.